Greetings, YouTube. So, I've seen a lot of buzz around the idea of defunding the police. So what does that mean? Like the title of this video says, do we always need a guy with a gun? So I'm going to give you a couple examples. Actually, more than a couple. I called the cops once because a couple on the first floor of my apartment building were having a fight and a literal tug of war with their toddler daughter. Literally, one parent had an arm and another parent had an arm on the girl, and they were pulling back and forth on her like she was a tug toy. Cops came, father ran off, he got cuffed and stuffed. They eventually skipped out on my landlord and got sued by him, and it was a whole big mess. They were not stellar parents. Another time, I called the cops because I could hear through a wall that my neighbor was beating her child, a boy. I think he was 6 or 7 or something like that. They came, cuffed and stuffed her. She lost custody of the kid, thankfully. And I found out later this is the second child that she had lost custody of. Not a stellar parent. In both of those circumstances, guys with guns were called for. Violence was being done. Someone needed to show up and handle the situation. Okay? One time I had an apartment I was living in. I really liked it. And in the apartment we had the fire in. And it got broken into. And I called the cops. I didn't need a guy with a gun. It was a breaking and entering. Happened while I was at work. There was no one there. There was no danger to anyone. It was just someone broke in my house and stole some of my stuff. The most important thing being my great-grandfather's gold watch, which I never recovered. I'm very depressed about that to this day. It was a lovely watch, and it was a memento from my grandmother Hilda. But I didn't need a guy with a gun for that. Even though I knew the guy with the gun who showed up. His name's Tom. I used to party with him back when I drank. It was like, "Hi Tom, how you doing? How you doing?" So it was like nice seeing Tom. But I didn't need a guy with a gun. All I needed was a police inspector, not a detective, but an inspector. Check the situation out, fill a report out, so I could then get my uh, insurance policy rolling because I had renter's insurance. Always have renter's insurance if you have an apartment. That is a must. Another time I called the cops. I called the cops when this place, 3 days after we bought it, was broken into because someone wanted to steal my copper pipes, which apparently was something that had been going on quite frequently in my area. I didn't know this when I bought the place, but so 3 days after I owned it, someone broke in. Guy with the gun showed up. I didn't need a guy with a gun. Again, just an inspector. Filled report out, get my insurance rolling. I already had insurance because I had to when I got my mortgage. I was recently in a car accident. There was no criminal action going on. Nobody ran. There was no ambulances. No one was injured. It was just a traffic accident. It destroyed my car. That's a different matter. But we didn't need a guy with a gun. In fact, we got two people. We got a guy and a gal with a gun. Didn't need them. We needed somebody who could come in, check the situation out, maybe someone with an expertise in traffic accidents. There are people out there who know a lot about traffic accidents. Fill the report out so we could get my insurance rolling. Unfortunately, the person that hit me didn't have insurance. I feel bad for her. But her car was drivable. She left with it, or her father left with it. She was too upset to drive. I fully understand. But we didn't need a guy with a gun. So that's what they're saying when they say defund the police. Defund the police and spend the money on positions of community safety that don't require the gun. Suicide? Call a social worker or a therapist. Maybe a partner who is an EMT. That would be a good combination. Social worker, EMT, therapist, EMT. And you don't need the full ambulance. They show up with their personal carry kit, those like backpack things, make an assessment, and then they decide, hey, I need more assistance. I need a bus. And they call up an ambulance. But again, nobody with guns. Nurses in hospitals every day deal with unruly, rowdy, sometimes violent, psychologically unstable people occasionally, and they handle those situations without batons, without stun guns, without tasers, without pepper spray, and without sidearms. That's the training we need on the street. Cops would be like firemen. You don't call the firemen to replace the battery in your smoke alarm. You don't need to do that. You call firemen when the building's on fire, or you smell smoke and you can't find the fire. You call the firemen. They can find the fire. That's their job. So police would become a reaction force, smaller, well-trained, able to handle the situation that they're called to do, but that's the only thing they would do. The rest of the time, they could hang out with the firemen, pump iron, and learn how to make good chili. They wouldn't be out there patrolling on the streets with firearms when you don't need them. Or bored punching people's license plates into their computer, hoping to hit something so they can then go ruin someone's life who is not a violent danger to the public. That's how it happens a lot in our society. Bored cops looking for trouble, they find it, and black people die. If you have fewer guys on the street with guns, you will have fewer dead black people. It's that simple. And when I say highly trained, I mean highly trained. I mean, you have to have a BA in criminology to become a cop. Then you spend a year in training. You get paid, let's say $20 an hour. You get paid for that year of training. And at the end of that training, you have to take a test. Pass the test, congratulations, you get a badge and a gun, and you get to go onto the street in that reaction force I mentioned. But the first thing they train you in for the first 6 months is de-escalation. Before you ever touch a firearm, you learn how to de-escalate the situation. You learn how to handle things so you never have to touch that firearm in the field. You know, I think it's in Louisiana, you only need 360 hours of training to be a cop. To get a firearm and go on the street and have the power of life and death over your fellow citizens, 360 hours. It takes 500 hours of training to be a manicurist in Louisiana. Does that make any sense to anybody? No, it does not. Another thing we can do is get rid of the police union. Not saying they can't be a member of a union, but they be a member of the municipal union that covers the firemen and all the municipal employees. They would then be all part of the same union. But no special union, no special protections. If a cop does a violent act, they get treated like a perp if that is shown that it wasn't in the line of duty or was excessive. No special protections. They don't get to investigate themselves. We bring people from the outside to investigate them. No special protections. The cops get treated like people who have committed a crime if they've committed a crime. Defund the police means well-trained reaction force law enforcement that doesn't have immunity from the things that you and I don't have immunity from. That's what people mean when they say defund the police. Community-based justice. Traffic experts. Building experts. Therapists, social workers. The people who can get out there and deal with the public in a non-violent way because they got no goddamn weapons. Fewer dead black people. We take a lot of the power away from the police and we put them in the same category as firemen. Seems pretty damn fair to me. I know that their cops are going to quit because they don't want that job. They like the power. They like having the power of life and death over the citizenry. They like the ego boost they get by making people be submissive to them, particularly black people. Yeah, there's a whole lot of cops out there, like the saying goes, that work the forces that burn crosses, and we need to get rid of them. So most of the time, we don't need the guy with the gun. Most of the time, we just need somebody to help us fill out the goddamn paperwork. That's it. So, yeah, I think it's time to defund the police.